pleasure of introducing Jacob Savage. He's the president and CEO of Speak Creative, and he is going to enlighten us on the wonderful world of apps. Jacob is the founder and president of Speak Creative, and he started that company back in 1999 and has built a business that serves hundreds of clients in about 40 states. Jacob plays a key role in all parts of his business, and according to his bio, he is constantly pushing the design team to excellence and working with their developers. So thank you, Jacob, for coming to speak with us. We're excited to see what you've got.
Great. You guys give me 1 second to get my technology under control here. Okay, I think we got it. They told me to try to work from over here. There's a microphone. So we'll try that. All right, my typical disclaimer with something like this is that I'm not a public speaker. You guys are the ones that do all the public stuff. So my role is more on the creative, technology, solutions side of things. So forgive me for any mess ups during my presentation. A little bit about our company, who is Speak. As she mentioned, we started back in '99. We began as a traditional graphic design firm. There wasn't a whole lot of websites and things being done quite at that time. Certainly no apps. But over the last 13 years or so, have evolved into what I would call a digital agency. We get our hands into a lot of things, but kind of the major categories are website design and development, mobile app development, and then internet marketing, that broad umbrella for search engine optimization, social media management, pay-per-click advertising, et cetera, et cetera. So. A few other bullets there. We have a staff of 17, made up of graphic designers, web developers, things like that. And we're based here in Memphis, but we do work for clients really all over the place. And actually noticed quite a few clients represented in the room. So happy to be here. All right, why I'm here. We have to answer this question a lot because coming from a web background, we get asked that question of what about apps? How do they play into the picture of somebody's digital strategy? So we wholeheartedly affirm the role of websites and mobile sites as part of the digital strategy, but specifically today, I want to talk to you guys about mobile apps because it's a very hot topic. More and more organizations are looking to make a connection with users in their mobile devices, but aren't exactly sure how to get there. So hopefully today I'll shed a little bit of light on that and give you guys hopefully some direction. Most organizations do realize that there's some potential there, but have kind of been on the sidelines looking at where things are going with apps. We kind of saw the initial boom of apps with mostly being games and personal entertainment, social media type stuff. But organizations now are looking at it and saying, okay, how do we get on that device? How do we get a piece of that audience's attention? So we'll look at kind of three major categories of organizational apps that we see, and those are apps that connect, apps that enhance, and then apps that work. So as you are kind of going through here, please keep in mind maybe your organization or some of the clients that you represent and how some of these solutions might find their way in use. Just a little supporting stats, a few supporting stats here. According to something I cannot see, 4 in every 5 minutes of time spent on a mobile device is spent using apps versus spent hopping into the user's browser and pulling up web pages. People who are app users tend to like the app experience more than a mobile site experience, and that's a whole other conversation of mobile site versus app, and I'm happy to have it. But there's just something about having that icon there, being able to tap it, and then have instant access to everything without having to use my keyboard to type up an address and things like that. So apps have a very special role. And then 64% of affluent app users say that they view brands that have mobile apps more favorably than those that don't. And you guys probably fall into that thinking of, if there's a major brand that you like and maybe buy from or do business with, you tend to expect that you can go find them on the App Store. So there's just this shift in our culture that just like we now hopefully all expect that an organization has a quality website, we now also expect to find them in the App Store and be able to connect with them that way as well. So let's talk about apps that connect. Compared to a website or a mobile site, the app experience is very much different. I was talking to Marvin before we got started here, and if you think about a way that a user interacts with the website, whether from their desktop computer or from their iPad or iPhone or similar, the action is all dependent on the device owner. I have to decide, I have to think in my head, I want to go check out what's going on with the Church Health Center. I have to launch Safari, whatever your browser is, and I have to go type in churchhealthcenter.org. Hopefully I type it right the first time and don't fall through those traps. And then they get the site, and then their session is done. And then we wait this long period of time, perhaps, until I think again, I want to go see what's up with the Church Health Center and go check them out. With an app, you're asking somebody to take a short investment of time to download and install your app, which takes 30 to 60 seconds. But once you've gotten that user to go through that process, you now have what could be a permanent installation, a permanent connection with that client. So as I'm browsing past my list of apps on my device and I see Facebook and this and that, I'm also going to see the Church Health Center app, which they don't have yet, but that idea that you're now there, you're in the pocket of all of those users who have downloaded and installed your app. And at that point, you've created a deeper connection than a typical website visitor than you would with a website visitor. The other thing to think about is that installing an app is very much an opt-in process, kind of like signing up for a newsletter list. Somebody says, I know you're going to communicate with me, and I'm going to, when I check this box. An app user understands that that there's someone opting in. I know that you're going to live on my device. So the profile of your audience is a little bit different as well. This is not just an anonymous visitor to your website who may have come there for a variety of reasons. This is somebody who knows who you are, has made the decision to hit that install button or that buy button, and now you live on their device. So the way that you address them might be tailored more specifically. It might be a smaller pool of audience than just the general public, but the way that you communicate them might be much more specifically. They may be more likely to donate, more likely to purchase a product, more likely to read your news and your blog. So keep that in mind as we talk about apps that connect. And as I mentioned, last bullet there, you have this frequent brand exposure and a frequent connection that happens because your app is installed on the user's device. So again, every time I'm passing by this fictional Church Health Center app, I'm reminded of them where I wouldn't have been otherwise, unless I passed their building or something. It's something that's now a physical presence in my life. And then there's also opportunities to proactively connect with someone who's installed your app through things like push notifications, badges, and things like that. So if there's some big news that comes out of an organization, people can opt to have that notice show up. So there's this loyal audience, but also this communication channel that exists for you to proactively send a message. So we'll take a look at some examples of apps that we put together that kind of fall in this category. And there's a few of them here. So the first one is Beeson Divinity School. This is a seminary out of Birmingham, Alabama, on part of the Samford University campus. We put together an app for their school, for their students. And some of the ways that they connect is in that first screenshot there. You'll see that they take their chapel messages, part of the teaching that happens there and part of the community that happens there, and they actually feed that down into their app. Yes, you can get it on their website. Yes, you can get it through the podcast, but this is also a big part of the offering of the app. So they can select an item, drill down into it, and actually go listen to media, and in some cases watch videos if they're attached. Another thing that they do that helps their current students is they feed their event calendar down into the app. It's a native experience. So They hit that event button, the system spins for maybe just a second, and then suddenly I've got the most up-to-date look at what's going on in the calendar. If I see an event that I as a student need to be a part of or want to be a part of, I'm able to tap into it and add it to my calendar or start as a favorite event. So there's just a couple of examples of how they're connecting with their students outside of the traditional means of a website or other kind of on-campus communication. YMCA of Birmingham. Member organization, obviously, but if you look at some of the screenshots there, one of their needs was to help serve their membership by helping them either find locations, which is the screenshot on the far right, the maps, because as a member of YMCA, you can go and work out at any of the facilities all over the metro area. But that middle screenshot was a very specific piece that we built for them that helps an app user go and explore group exercise opportunities. So instead of having to go through some paper process or having to hit the website every time you wanted to look, you can, on your way to the gym, hopefully at a stoplight, pull out your phone and go see when Muscle Works 45 starts. And add that to your calendar. So just a great way of staying connected to the membership with your latest information. Night Moves Prom, this is a local company here in town. They're actually called American Clothing Express, but they make prom dresses and bridal dresses, things like that. And they had a need to connect with their these high school girls that go to prom all over the United States, actually all over the world. This is an international app, and they put their product catalog out there for girls to download, browse the entire catalog, add to favorites as they go, and then that last screenshot is to go find a nearby retailer and actually go and try on and buy a dress. Again, instead of being at more of an arm's length distance from their audience, they're actually able to push catalog content directly to them. And then this next one is just actually a demo app, but the New York Food Truck Association. Food trucks are a big movement. We've got a great association here in Memphis as well. But if you think about the need for connection there, you've got restaurants that you're loyal to, but they keep changing locations. So how do you ever keep up with that? So right now, a lot of them rely on Twitter and other social media to post their location, but you have to follow each individual truck to keep up with those. So bringing them all together in an app allows for the association to say, okay, here's our entire offering. So they're providing a benefit to their members, but to the actual consumer, it makes it very easy for me to pull the app up, go find a truck that's nearby or a certain truck that I want to try. There's even a promotions management system that's built in, so trucks can say, hey, we're having a deal today, and you see that little, on that second line, a little green little promotion flag there as a way to invite users to come and try Big D's Grub. So those are examples of apps that are intended to provide a deeper level of connection. The next category are apps that enhance an experience, that enhance the way that I experience a particular organization. Because of how technologically advanced mobile devices are these days, you can tap into some pretty cool things because of apps. GPS and mapping capabilities, camera, phone call functionality, email and text messaging, social media integration. All of those capabilities open up opportunities to build apps that make it very simple to connect with an organization over the phone, by email, by social media, or even, as we'll look at some examples of how to use camera and mapping to complement the experience that happens on site. We do the app for the Memphis Zoo as well as their website and mobile site. And we wanted to build an app that made the experience of going to the zoo that much better. We have an outstanding zoo. I don't know if everybody recognizes that, but they're one of the best in the country. And so we felt like an app would be only enhancing to what they do. So you'll see one of the key features is, again, mapping functionality. We see that a lot with mobile devices, mobile apps. But instead of picking up that paper map when you walk through the gates, you've got the app installed, and it's GPS integrated. So as I move through the park, I can see my location and I can see the location of each individual exhibit. Makes it very easy for me to make that last-minute decision when the kids are starting to go nuts and it's time to go home, but we want to stop by the monkeys. I can just search monkeys. I see the pin pop up, and we make that beeline to the monkeys, and then we're out of there. Another kind of fun feature is in the screenshot on the far right. That's my thumbs up there. But we built in a picture-taking capability. Everybody's always taking pictures at the zoo. Why not build that into the app and be a part of that experience? So the app has built-in branded picture frames. You can see the Memphis Zoo logo at the bottom. So when I want to take a picture of my kid, I can use the app to do so. It's got the zoo stuff on there, and then I can go share that through a variety of ways, and the zoo's brand goes out with that. So what better way to enhance an existing experience at the zoo than through that? So I happen to know their stats because I looked at them recently, but they've had something like 22,000 app installs since late January, which is a really good number of people that the zoo now has a connection with, and that they know they're providing a positive experience when they go through the zoo. Memphis in May is also a client of ours, similar to the zoo. We do their website, mobile site, and then also app. The Memphis in May always has something that goes a bit awry, whether it be weather or lineup changes, things like that. So the app's been very useful the last couple of years in that effort. When they moved to Tiger Lane, unfortunately the app had maps built into it for Tomley Park, and we couldn't make that much of a pivot, but we were able to provide notification through the app that says, hey, we're going to be at Tiger Lane instead. So it was another communication method to their audience. But built into the app, there's kind of on the navigation side 4 main sections there to dive into kind of the 4 pillars of the Memphis in May festival, or family of festivals. But you can see that there's up to date, up to the minute lineups for the different bands that are playing, or even on the far right side that shows the barbecue teams. So whatever part of Memphis in May you enjoy the most, there's a section of the app built to enhance your experience as you go there, from parking information to frequently asked questions, emergency information, as well as maps and things like that. So really has helped to enhance the experience of those who make it out for those different events. This next one is our latest app to hit the App Store. This is for Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas. And they came to us, this is the 100th, is that what it says? Yeah, 100th anniversary of Girl Scouts. The Girl Scouts National is doing currently a big celebration of that at the Texas State Fair. So the Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas had the privilege of being a part of that, and so they wanted to build an app that that girls and their families could download and use at the State Fair to help celebrate this experience. And so we built an app that had an interactive, it's called the Big Texpedition, interactive challenge that took the users through various points in the park. There was a map provided, and there were riddles, and so the girls would answer a riddle that would tell them the location to find their way to, and when they get there they answer a challenge question. And as they go through it, all the way through it, they end up earning a badge at the end of that. So it's a great way to get girls interactive, at the State Fair, get their friends involved as well. But then they come back to earn their badge, and it's an opportunity for them to, talk to them about the Girl Scouts and reasons to join. There's also on the far right-hand side of things, they had an exhibit in I believe the State Hall. That was interactive, so there are QR codes all over. This is going on currently. There's QR codes everywhere, and so the app has a built-in QR code scanner and browser, so that as you are in this exhibit, you can scan those, have it pull up information, and then stay within the app. after the state fair is over, we'll pull out those specific things, and this will continue to live on as an organizational app for the Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas. So you can see on the far left the navigation with cookies and programs and where we are would all be built in there. So. And then I believe this is the last one in this section. Shelby Fit is an app that we did a little bit earlier this year in coordination with Baptist Memorial Healthcare and Shelby Farms Park Conservancy. And this is a unique app. Some of you probably have this one, but it's a way to help the community get out there, get moving, and do so in all of the public parks that we've got available. So the first screenshot you see there has a activity logging. So you set a goal for 1 hour of activity a week or 5 hours, whatever it might be. So it's scalable no matter where you're at in your exercise lifestyle. But then there's listings of activities around town, so you can go see. I'm going to try to get out there and get active. What are some of my options? Volleyball. I like volleyball, so you can tap on volleyball, and then it'll show all of the parks around town that offer sand volleyball or facilities to go play volleyball. So it's a great connection into what Memphis has to offer. There's also a view that just shows all of the parks that are part of the database. So just a great resource, and I know that both of those organizations, Baptist and Shelby Farms, are getting a lot of positive feedback for how folks are getting out there and using it. And I will skip that one. Okay, so the last category is apps that work. So we've kind of talked about creating a connection with an audience or enhancing an experience, whether that be on-site or otherwise. But another category that we're seeing, largely because of the iPad, honestly, or tablets, are apps that work, that provide some sort of a business function for an organization. Businesses are finding ways to replace traditional processes with some sort of digital experience, whether that be a paper form or an app that allows them to do calculations. So I'll talk about a couple of apps that are very interesting for those organizations. One of the nice things about building these processes through apps or through software is that you can improve productivity, you can reduce your errors, and you can enhance the organization's brand. If you think about a salesperson who might come and sit down in your home to talk to you about some particular service that they offer, and you might have 2 or 3 people come by to get some comparative bids. The first 2 people may come in with a traditional 3-ring binder, and they kind of flip through their presentation and they have their pricing sheets and they're using pen and paper. But that last organization may come in, with their iPad wirelessly connected, and they're tapping and doing presentations and things right on the device. It just, at least for me, helps me to understand that organization is forward-thinking and is investing in technology, which is oftentimes a good thing for me, no matter what service they offer. So one example of that, we already looked at this client, but a different app. So the first app we looked at was the one for prom dresses. They did one similar for wedding dresses, but they were consumer-facing, helping consumers become aware of the catalog and find a place to buy. But as this company goes out to market, they want to market their dresses and have retailers distribute them in their stores. So we created an app that facilitates that entire process. I can only fit 2 screenshots on here, but some of the core features are it brings in their entire product catalog and lets people interactively move through it, their search capabilities and swiping and all that type of stuff. But ultimately the point is to create an order. So as they're moving through the catalog, they're adding products to their cart. We're calculating prices as they go, and ultimately we get to a cart and we can submit an agreement. Now they're not running a credit card on the spot. That's not part of their process, but we take the order. You can see I kind of scribbled my signature there. We do an on-device signature, and then we sync that order up to our servers in real time. So they're getting real-time reporting on they've got 30 iPads doing this at one time, so they're getting real-time reporting on what items are selling the most and all sorts of trends that come from this. and then they can ultimately move that into their inventory system and fulfill orders. We do similar things with another organization that unfortunately I can't provide details on their name or anything, but that same situation of again, instead of a paper process walking in and going through that, I can actually do that through a digital process. And it's not just the experience that happens when I'm with a salesperson, for instance, but it's all the things that happen immediately after that. Instead of that salesperson having to get back into his truck, drive back to the office, drop the paper order off at some administrator's desk to be processed, all this can happen more in real time because of the internet connections that are built into these devices. So an order can be submitted while I'm on my, sitting at the kitchen table, and that can go straight in to be processed. So some very interesting conversations coming up around apps that get work done in a better way because of mobile devices, but I think specifically because of iPads and their large screen size and how you can interact with them. A few app tips for you guys as you're thinking through the possibility of building an app. These are things that we end up answering quite a bit in the process, working through the process with somebody. So first thing, apps typically cost more than websites. Why is that? That's because apps and websites are not the same thing at all. I was telling Marvin that tends to be the closest thing we have to compare to an app as a website. But a website is HTML, and there's a whole framework built into browsers and servers and things that make that go. And we've been able to, over the last 15-ish years, 20 years, improve all of those and make those processes more efficient. Apps are relatively new. We're about 3 or 4 years into it. And so you're building software from the ground up versus just building an HTML document on top of the infrastructure that's already there. So don't be surprised when you reach out there and you get a little bit of sticker shock sometimes on an app version of what you might have seen happening online. That said, there are some very specific advantages to apps. Web apps are not equal to native apps, and basically what this means, there are apps that you can go and install from the App Store, and then there are apps that you can access over someone's website. They're both called apps, but the latter are called web apps versus native apps. There are some upsides to web apps, being that you can actually use that web technology that I mentioned to build them, but they don't have quite the capabilities that a native app does, being that they're dependent on an internet connection, whereas native apps can be fully functional even if they're offline. And they don't have the same access to the device itself, like camera functionality, for instance, is not available to a web application like it is to a native application. So some of the things that we went through in the screenshots there would not be possible from a web app. Am I okay on time? Okay. You should always build native apps natively. There are kind of companies out there that when you say I want to go build an app and I want to build an iOS app and an Android app together, they'll say, okay, great, we'll use an emulator to build those. So they code it once, and then there's software that generates it and makes it for both devices. Just from speaking from experience, we tried that. It's not a good way to go. You don't have the fine-grained, your developer doesn't have the fine-grained control over what that app what the end product is. So if you want to have a quality app, make sure that you're talking to your developer about building it truly native. It will cost more, yes, but a better product always does. And then who to hire, easy one is us, but if you choose not us, then a few tips for who to look for. A company with plenty of experience building apps and other things in-house. There are a lot of people that say they do apps and then ship the app project offshore somewhere. And that's just not a good process to follow. You've got a third party in between you and the app developer, and everything gets lost in translation, or everything can. So look for somebody who's actually doing the work. A company with creative chops. something that's unique about apps, I think probably because it kind of spun out of Apple, but most of the apps that you use probably have an outstanding user experience. They look great, they interact well. It's not, you're typically not going to go download an app that looks junky or doesn't perform very well. So while somebody might be able to code an app, they also need to have a resource to make it look sharp and really represent your brand. A company who's local or at least very easy to connect with. App projects, similar to website projects, are involved. There's a lot of things to talk about, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, and you want to be able to, at times, in my opinion, sit across the table from somebody and relay those ideas and go through those details. Sometimes, again, if you're working with somebody offshore or well out of state, that can be difficult, so keep that in mind. A company that can provide a complete solution, even beyond the app itself. I mentioned some of the apps that we do have a server component to them. We pass an order up to a server, or we feed calendar events down into an app. Oftentimes, we haven't really come across any apps at all that we've built that didn't have some other outside connection for content or some other process. So we have to be skilled at all the parts and pieces that might connect to the app. And then finally, a company that understands, kind of cut off here, the business opportunity of an app. That might be something that you're having a hard time articulating yourself, but you want to be able to sit down, put your heads together and say, okay, what are some ideas that are going to work for my organization? Whether you're a nonprofit or a corporation, there's a business value to an app that can be gained. All right, well, that takes me to the end of the prepared stuff. Is it time for questions? Mm-hmm. Okay.
With smartphones getting larger and now they're talking about making a mini iPad, how do you see that affecting what people do with apps or what devices they're using them on? You're not going to need an iPad anymore if your phone gets large enough, right?
My opinion is there'll always be some separate devices. Nobody wants to hold this up to their ear, to talk on the phone. So as long as they're phones, I think there'll be a handheld version. But that said, I think that the thing that we have to keep in mind is that once somebody gets kind of apps under their skin, they want their app to be everywhere that they are. So most of the apps that I have on my iPhone, I also have on my iPad. And I might even have on my MacBook, have an actual Mac version of an app. We get frustrated when we can have it on one device and not all of our devices. So it may be that later this year, when they roll out a potential iPad mini, that I'll have a full size, I'll have a mini, and I'll have a phone, and they all have a unique purpose in my life, and I want my apps to run across all of them.
So does that mean that you have to design 3 versions of the same app to take advantage of the real estate on each device?
No. Specifically with iOS, you can build a single app that can conform itself to those different screen sizes. You have to do that specifically, and you declare it as being iPad capable, iPhone capable, iPad mini capable, and that sort of thing. So it releases in the App Store as one app, but I can download it and use it on all of my devices.
But isn't there a graphic challenge?
There is, yes. That's part of the consideration when an app is built. That right out of the box, it's not going to be universal. You have to go and make it universal. You can reuse a lot of the same code, but you have to adjust each specific view to fill the screen appropriately. Yes. Go ahead.
How quickly can changes be made on the app?
That goes back to what I just mentioned about having an outside connection to the app. A lot of things have to be baked into an app. That's why you see app updates alerts showing up on your phone a lot of times, because people need to fix a bug or they need to add functionality. But that said, you can actually still drive a lot of content without having to push an app update. Every app that I showed you there has a connection to our content management system. So the same calendar that the Memphis Zoo manages for their website also pushes to their app. So they're able to make real-time, up-to-the-minute updates to things without having to release an app update. But you have to build it with that in mind.
How do you get your app on other people's phones. If you develop it,
Sure.
how do you get it from your development to my phone or their phones?
Two main things. You have the actual technical process of getting into the App Store, which is a process of itself. It's not that hard of a thing to do. But where you guys come in more is making the announcement. How do you let people know that it's there? And there are lots of ways to do that. You can do traditional press releases and social media notices and whatnot. You can also embed handling in your website so that when a mobile device hits it, you see that little splash screen that says, hey, we have an app. Why don't you go download that, because we know you're going to have a better experience if you interact with us over an app versus over our mobile site. So there's traditional marketing beyond that technical process of pushing the app out.
Could you speak a little bit about fundraising through an app? Because I know that when we looked at this, it's a matter of the App Store is going to take a certain amount of percentage, so it ends up to where if a person wants to support your organization, it makes more sense for them to go to your website. Have you seen any evolution in the trends of fundraising specific functionality in apps?
Speaking specifically to iOS devices, Apple devices, Apple still does not allow you to take a donation in-app. You can have a button to a donation, but it has to open up Safari externally and then load up your web page from there. You can do an in-app purchase and give Apple 30% if you want to, but it's not. I don't know that they would technically classify that as like a 501c3 charitable deduction. So that's unfortunate. Several of those organizations are nonprofits, and when we bake those buttons into the app, it's always pointing externally. And Apple reviews every app that gets posted into their App Store. Android apps do not, and so the rules are a little bit different over there. But we can't even slide it past Apple. If they see a donation button, they're going to click it and go see what happens. And if it doesn't open in Safari, then they'll reject it.
Can you give an estimate of price range?
Sure. It kind of depends on where you start. We have a platform of app technology that we've built up that handles a lot of the common things that people ask for. You saw some of them there: mapping, calendaring, photo galleries, different things like that we've already built kind of as a library, and we can pull these things together and deliver an app at a lower cost than somebody starting from scratch. And that world is going to probably start in the few $1,000s range for a single platform. You get into the all custom world, and you can very quickly get in the $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 price range per platform. Depending on what you want the app to do. And that's where people get thrown. They think, oh, well, I can get a website for free, or I can get a website, from my web guy for this much money. But again, an app is not at all the same thing. You're actually developing software. Even the language in which it's written has zero to do with HTML. So it requires a more technically capable person to build an app than a website.
Given that fairly steep investment you can't make, do you all work with your clients to help them figure out are there ways to monetize that? There's some commercial apps.
Sure.
Ways to do that to get you a return on investment if you're investing $25,000 or $30,000.
Sure. It's interesting because when you talk about an organizational app, normally the hope is that you just distribute this as widely as possible because you have that connection or that enhancement of the experience or some sort of business purpose. So it's to the organization's advantage to release it for free in those cases. But there are options to sell it to the App Store. Again, Apple takes around 30%. Android doesn't take anything, I don't believe. I could be wrong there, so don't quote me. So you could sell it to the App Store and just count on a lower number of purchases, which is going to happen, or through some of these events and nonprofits, look for corporate sponsorship. There are organizations that ABC Bank, for instance, might be making a mobile push with their customers. They want them to use mobile banking. They might want to piggyback on top of your app and say, okay, Memphis in May brought to you by ABC Bank, where we're mobile friendly. So you're catching mobile users because we know they're using the app and informing them about the sponsors' mobile offerings of their own.
Can you build an e-commerce type functionality into these apps?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one that you saw towards the end that was the iPad with addresses, we could have very easily laid in an actual purchase process, but that's just not the way that they work.
Could you talk a little bit about the difference between iPhone and Android users and setup?
Yeah, this always comes up. Everybody always wants to create apps for both audiences, and we have to tell them that we're absolutely capable of doing that. But the stats that we see are consistently a 3-to-1 adoption rate for iPhone users versus Android users. And people get perplexed by that because Android has around 80% of the market share in terms of mobile devices. What makes the difference is that if you go out and buy a phone today, your options pretty much are you can buy an iPhone or you can buy something else, and it's going to be an Android phone. So people are getting Android phones by default, but they may not have any interest in taking advantage of them. They're certainly not as into apps as an iPhone user is. So while a lot of those apps that you saw have an Android counterpart, the stats continue to show that it's 3-to-1 Apple versus Android.
Downloads an app, do you know anything about that person? Or do you just know that, like you said, 20,000 people downloaded? Do you have any data?
Yeah, you don't get any specifics from the app stores. They'll tell you just a number. They'll tell you a country from which it came, and obviously a date and a time stamp that it happened, but nothing else besides that. You don't know what part of town they're from or what state they live in, anything like that. However, within an app that once the app is running, you can actually build in some of those analytics tools into it, whether that be individual views of a certain section of the app. You could actually report that back to Google Analytics or your own system if you want to, or you can have profiles built in, like the one that was the dress ordering actually had a place where their customers could log in, and so any order that's created is automatically tagged to that customer, and we know that we know who they are at that point. Beyond that, when you launch an app, you'll notice that it asks you, can we use your device's location? Can we send you push notifications? And you make that choice up front. So you get an opt-in for their preference, but still you don't get any personal data from them. Anybody else? Okay. I'll be hanging around if you guys have anything you want to
Will you
ask.
draw a number first?
Oh, sure. We'll do that.